Okay, welcome to this video then on unseen poetry for your GCSE English Literature exam. This question does not have to be scary. It can be really straightforward. The purpose of this, three things. Number one is step by step how to tackle the question and hit those marks for grade 5 or higher. Secondly, how to gain a quick understanding of the poem, bearing in mind it'll be a poem that you've never seen before, probably one that your teachers have not encountered before either. And thirdly, how to plan and structure a response to hit those marks. So, step by step then, let's tackle the question in this way. Here's the poem we're going to use. It's called Nettles by Vernon Scannell, or Scannell, or however you say it, I don't know. Here's the poem. My son, aged 3, fell in the nettle bed. Bed seemed a curious name for those green spears. That regiment of spite behind the shed, it was no place for rest. With sobs and tears the boy came seeking comfort, and I saw white blisters beaded on his tender skin. We soothed him till his pain was not so raw. At last he offered us a watery grin, and then I took my billhook, honed the blade, and went outside and slashed in fury with it till not a nettle in that fierce parade stood upright anymore. And then I lit a funeral pyre to burn the fallen dead, but in 2 weeks the busy sun and rain had called up tall recruits behind the shed. My son would often feel sharp wounds again. Now, even if we're not really understanding that poem, hopefully the following steps are going to help you to really get into the poem and find some things that you'll be able to write about and hit those marks for. So the question will look something like this. It's not really changed much over the last couple of years. It's always the same structure. How does the poet present the speaker's thoughts and feelings in the poem Nettles? So step one is to look at the title. The title can be used as a quote. It can often give us some really good insights into what the poem's about. So first of all, what are the connotations of nettles, of the title? In this case, we can work out that nettles are like stingers. They cause harm. They sting. They affect the skin. Second thing to do is to look at the first line of the poem. My son, aged 3, fell in the nettle bed. We can work out here then that the point of view is from a parent, for example. They've got a young son. He's fallen in the nettles. The next thing to do is to look at the last line, because that gives us the narrative. We've looked at the starting point and now we're looking at the end point. How does it end? My son would often feel sharp wounds again. It tells us actually that not a lot has changed. Despite getting rid of the nettles, they've grown back. Maybe we just need to learn lessons. Maybe we need to learn to deal with injury. Maybe life is full of dangerous situations and we should stop being overprotective of our kids. Maybe that's what the speaker's thoughts and feelings are. What I would do now is pause the video, look at your copy of the poem, which you can find at mrcrawfordenglish.com, download it, highlight the title, perhaps the first line and last line, and make some annotations as to what it helps you to work out. You can also try doing that on some of the other unseen poems that I've put on the website for you as well. Download those, have a practice on several of them. When we come back, we'll look at step 2. So hopefully now we've got some annotations for the title, the first and the last line of the poem, which has hopefully helped us to understand a little bit about what's going on. The second thing, step 2, is to think about the beginning, the middle and the end, almost like a story. And what we need to do is draw 2 lines across the poem to create 3 sections, just like this, and then annotate what is going on in each of those 3 sections. So pause the video now, read back through the poem and draw 2 lines across to create 3 sections, a beginning, a middle and end, and try and annotate what you think is happening in each of those 3. Here's one I made earlier then. Hopefully you've got similar annotations. This is where I drew my lines. In the first section, the son's fallen and he's injured. The parent soothes them. There's imagery of war. We've got some war-related words going on in there. In the middle section, the parent's angry and goes out and destroys the nettles. They burn the remains. The nettles are compared to soldiers, so we've got more war words, so a lexical set going on there of words relating to war. And in the final section, in a short space of time, the nettles have grown back despite being removed, and they're still being compared to soldiers in a war. Hopefully you've got something similar to that. What that then means is we can now form 3 paragraphs. We're probably only going to spend about 30 minutes on this question because of time and the amount of things that have to be done in this exam paper. It's quite a busy one, 2 hours 15 minutes for AQA. So spend about 30 minutes on it. 3 paragraphs maximum, 2 might be plenty, but you've now got a paragraph that you can write about the beginning, a paragraph about the middle, and a paragraph about the end. And let's have a look at the mark scheme as well to make sure we know that we know what things need to be in those paragraphs. So there are 4 things you're being marked on. Number 1, a clear response to the text. In other words, you've understood the poem and you can make some good points about it. Number 2, effective use of evidence. We're used to that with all the other questions on all of the other English papers. Thirdly, something else we should be well trained trained in, clear explanation of writer's methods. So picking out a lexical set of war words and explaining why they might have been used. And number 4, understanding the effect of those writer's methods on the reader. What do those methods help us to understand or think or feel or react or whatever else it might be. So those 4 things must be in our paragraphs. So what might that look like then? I've written an example paragraph for the first section, the beginning. This is what it looks like. This would get us to the grade 5 marks on the mark scheme. So here we go. At the beginning of the poem, the speaker's thoughts and feelings are rooted in their response to their son being stung in a nettle bed in the garden. Notice I've colour-coded these against the mark scheme. That opening couple of sentences, that opening sentence, sorry, is clear. It answers the question. It's a rephrase of that question. Secondly, some evidence. Bed seemed a curious word for those spears. The speaker questions why a nettle bed is called a bed. We've explained that quotation. Notice in red, I'm now going to start talking about some language, some writer's methods. The use of the word spears has connotations of war and attack. Remember that language doesn't have to be fancy techniques. It can just be the use of a word, in this case, spears. This allows the reader to see that the nettles are painful and cause harm. There's some effect on the reader. The lexical set of war continues when the speaker refers to the nettles as a regiment of spite. Notice how that quote is now embedded as part of the sentence. The poet's use of metaphor compares the nettles to an army ruthlessly attacking innocent children. And again, in green at the bottom there, we've got the effect on the reader. The reader understands here that the parent sees the nettles as an enemy and has a feeling of utter hatred and anger. It's a good idea to show that you're talking about the effect on the reader by actually using the word reader in that response. That's a relatively short paragraph and it's going to get to those grade 5 marks because it's doing the 4 things in the mark scheme. What you need to do now perhaps is pause, have a go at doing the same thing, follow my structure perhaps if it helps you, and write a paragraph for the middle section and the end. See what you can come up with. And follow the link to my website as well, where you can download this sample response and some writing templates for the answer as well. So hopefully you've had a go at writing 2 extra paragraphs then, one for the middle, one for the end section. You can email me your responses, info@mrcrawford.co.uk. I'll happily take a look at those for you and offer you some feedback if you would like it. And from the website, mrcrawfordenglish.com, you can download more sample poems to practice applying these strategies and techniques to, following the steps and hopefully creating a really succinct, straightforward answer. And hopefully you've realised that this question does not have to be scary. It can be dead straightforward. Good luck with practicing. You'll be absolutely fine. Go and smash it. Laters.